Hey everybody, and welcome to another lecture with Coding with Roby. And in this lecture, we're going to be going over the SQL database introduction. This brings us to our first question. What is a database? A database is an organized collection of structured information of data which is stored in a computer system. The data within a database can be easily accessed. The data can be modified. The data can be controlled and organized. Many databases use a structured query language, SQL, to modify and write data. What we can really take away here is that a database is nothing without data. A database is more or less structured data, so that brings us to our next question. What is data? So what is data? Well, data can be related to just about any object. For example, a user on an application may have a name, an age, email, gender, or even a password. All of this can be considered data. The user in this example is an object, and this object is made up of data. Think of a user on your favorite social media platform. This user may have a username, a profile picture, may even have some posts, images, and other objects of data, or other users may be able to look at. Programming is all about how to handle data. So let's rewind a little bit and go back to how do we handle data? A database is how we handle data. And a database, again, is a collection of data. And since data on its own is just data, a database allows the management to this data. Databases are organized in how data can be retrieved, stored, and modified. There are many types of database management systems, also known as a DBMS, which handles the database we are creating. And we'll cover this in just a few slides. But first, let's check out what a database looks like in physical form. So let's look at some databases before we go into computing. Before we continue thinking electronically, let's think of a database in a physical form. One example of this would be a dictionary, while the other may be a phone book. Now, a dictionary has a word and definition relationship. For example, you open a physical dictionary to try and find a word in which you want the definition for. For example, you may open up a dictionary to look up the definition of computer. As you open the dictionary, all words will be listed in alphabetical order, and when you find computer, it will say an electronic device for storing and processing data, typically in binary form according to instructions given to it in a variable program. Another example of a physical database is a phone book. A phone book has a name and phone number relationship. So in this example, we have an example user who has a phone number of 123-456-789, example user 2 who has 123-765-4321, and lastly a user 3 which also has a phone number. Again, we are seeing here is the idea of a piece of data having additional data. Each word or example user has a definition or phone number attached. After we have all this data in a relational database, how do we access this? Well, the way we can access this is using something called SQL or SQL. What is SQL? Well, like I mentioned already, it can be pronounced either as SQL or SQL. SQL is a standard language for dealing with relational databases. SQL can be used to search, update, add, and delete database records. This information may sound very familiar, and that's because SQL in essence is using CRUD operations to a database. Again, to access a database, we need a DBMS to handle pretty much everything involved with the database. What are some of the top SQL database management systems on the market today? We have MySQL, which is a DBMS that is extremely popular. We have PostgreSQL, is another database that you really cannot go wrong with in a production environment. And lastly, we have SQLite. And SQLite is the most popular development database management system. During our development, we will use mostly SQLite, and that is because it is very lightweight and works right in our application. In a future section called Production Databases, we will go over the installation and setup of both MySQL and PostgreSQL. Awesome. Well, this wraps up this lecture, and I will see you in the next video.